Hello again. I think it's fair to say that most of us know that there is something dishonest going on with the presentation of history lately. The most familiar image nowadays of Tudor history is no longer Walter Raleigh or Francis Drake, the Spanish Armada, anything of that sort, even Queen Elizabeth I. The most famous image that we see these days from Tudor England is that of the Black Trumpeter, John Blank, an immigrant from Iberia who spent a few years in London in the early 16th century. The aim of those promoting such images is to persuade us that black people have always played an important role in British history and that there have always been large numbers living in this country. This is part of a wider, worldwide enterprise, which is to advance the idea that the world we live in was not created by white men alone, and that black men too have been important in all kinds of fields. Indeed, the idea that is really being pushed is that black people created the world, that it was black people that made the modern world rather than white people. In short, the idea is to create a false narrative and then indoctrinate children into this so they will grow up believing a lot of falsehoods, half-truths and wild exaggerations. Whenever I have claimed on this channel that no invention has emerged from sub-Saharan Africa for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, there are complaints to YouTube alleging that I am spreading hate speech, together with comments here which ask how I can say such a ridiculous thing. Of course, the obvious thing for such people to do would be to give some inventions made in sub-Saharan Africa, and that would destroy what I'm saying instantly. Nobody has yet done that, though, which is curious. I'll come back to this point in a moment. There is currently a craze for publicly accessible AI systems. I'm sure that we've all heard about this in the news, how even school children are using AI systems like the ChatGPT bot and all the rest of it to write their homework and do their assignments for college. Needless to say, Google are keen to be in on this and at the cutting edge, and they produced a system of their own called Gemini. It allows people to do all sorts of things that you expect from an OpenAI arrangement, including a marvellous function which will generate images. The only problem was, of course, that it had been programmed to erase white people and pretend that they did not and never had existed. If Google's Gemini was asked to create an image of a German soldier from 1943, it created a picture of a black man in the uniform of the Wehrmacht. This horribly offensive image may be seen in the thumbnail to this video. Ask it to make a picture of a Viking, and you can see next to the picture of the black Nazi soldier, Google Gemini's idea of a Viking. Medieval knight? That would be Chinese women, black men and Indians, not a white person to be seen. You want Google Gemini to show you a pope? It produced pictures of women and black men as its idea of what a typical pope would look like. Google have now switched off this function because the press has picked up on it and it has become the object of some ridicule. In the description to this video, I give a link to a news item about this extraordinary business. In a way, it's good because those of us who have long noticed this trend are assured that we are not mad conspiracy theorists after all. This really is happening by design. The idea of white people in history really is being erased, and not accidentally either. People are devising computer programs which have been told to avoid images of white people. This ties in with what I mentioned earlier, which is that history is being rewritten to give black people the starring role and pretend that our world was not after all the product of white men's ingenuity and genius. This brings us back to the question of inventions. This is a great interest of mine, and I have many books on the subject, ranging from hefty academic stuff to children's books. Here's a few of them. Oh, here we go, 70 Great Inventions of the Ancient World. I'll return to that one in a moment. Then we've got 1001 Inventions that changed the world. Great Inventions through history, the origin of everything, and even an old favourite, the Ladybird Book of Inventions. One thing which leaps out is that everything which has gone to make up the modern world was invented by white men. White men, by the way, all these inventions are the product of male ingenuity. So, for example, looking through 1001 inventions that changed the world, we've got the atomic clock, radar, holograms, barcodes, radiocarbon dating, chemotherapy, transistor radios, microwave ovens, kidney dialysis, computers, night vision goggles, helicopters. I think you're getting the point here. Epoxy resins, ski lifts, cat's eyes, radio, electron microscopes, you name it. It was invented by a white man. But what about the past? Perhaps colonialism crippled Africa's development, and before the 16th century, black people played a big role in creating the world. I have here a very good book on this matter, which is Thames and Hudson's 70 Great Inventions of the Ancient World. I've been through it with a tooth comb. Even things like boomerangs are first recorded in Europe. Oil lamps appeared in prehistoric Europe rather than Africa. The earliest invention, or the most recent, I should say, because certainly Africans invented stone tools. The most recent invention that's emerged from sub-Saharan Africa that I can find here is the bone harpoon for fishing, which emerged 35,000 years ago. I would be interested to hear if anybody watching this can point to more recent African inventions. Something, say, more recent than the last 2,000 or 3,000 years would be interesting. There's certainly Chinese inventions, printing, magnetic compasses, gunpowder and so on, but they're few and far between. The world we live in was created by white men. Everything that we see, everything that we use is the product of white men and their ingenuity. There is no doubt at all about that, and there's also no doubt at all that attempts are being made to suppress that information and to ensure that children are no longer taught it. And this is quite worrying, really, or at least it worries me.